Alright, man, peace. So I've done quite a few videos on the WNBA. When I say quite a few, I mean somewhere around 3, maybe 4 videos on the WNBA. And the main reason why I cover that so-called sport is just so that many of the brothers that come on my site, on my channel, understand what the WNBA is really for. And that is to assist in the engineering of society to promote lesbianism, particularly amongst the so-called black woman. That's the only reason why the WNBA exists. It's barely staying afloat. To be quite honest with you, when the WNBA first emerged in the mid to late 90s, I thought as a sport it was far better back then than it is now. And even back then, it was pretty much tacitly understood that there was a good portion of the females that were clearly lesbian. But many of the better players were also clearly heterosexual. And you could tell the energy just emanated off of them in a different way. If anyone were to catch a WNBA game today, it's pretty obvious that 95% of those broads are lesbians. Candace Wiggins confirmed it, and since then she's been an anathema to the WNBA. Beyond that, the appeal of the WNBA is plummeting drastically. They only generate about $25 million per year, and when you take that number and subtract the amount of maintenance fees and costs to pay players and stage events, I'm pretty sure that the WNBA is losing money. Why am I saying all this? Because the WNBA franchise in Las Vegas, known as the Las Vegas Aces, are at the epicenter of a controversy. Because supposedly, they got caught up in a series of flight delays that to them necessitated that they forfeit their game against the Washington Mystics. And for a league that's barely staying afloat, barely staying above water, one would think that they would have put their best foot forward to actually engage the Washington Mystics in that scheduled basketball game. It's very clear to me that many of the players don't understand the condition that their league is in. It's so obvious that if it were not for the fact that they're trying to use the WNBA to promote lesbianism, they would have scrapped it a very long time ago. And this has led to a series of questions in regards to quote-unquote equality and how the female players are treated in the WNBA, how those franchises are treated, and why they were put in the position where they were subjected to a series of flight delays. So, of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Let's turn now our attention to the WNBA. In the Las Vegas Aces were issued a forfeit by the WNBA yesterday for failing to take the court last Friday against the Washington Mystics. Now, the Aces refused to take the court after numerous flight delays that led to 25-plus hours of traveling from Las Vegas.
Look at these broads passed out at the airport. They could have gotten plenty of rest had they been at home in the kitchen after they finished cooking for their boyfriends or their husbands or what have you and their children. They could have gotten plenty of rest in the bedroom. That's where they could have gotten plenty of rest, as opposed to jet setting and hopping from airport to airport, passing out, barely able to stand, so that they could participate in a game that nobody cares about.
Las Vegas to D.C. The Aces eventually arrived in D.C. at 3 p.m. for an 8 p.m. tip that was extended an hour and issued this statement an hour before the game.
Let me say this. They touched down in D.C. at 3 p.m. They pushed the time of the game back to 8 p.m. They had plenty of time to make that game. Believe me, back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, when the NBA was hanging on by a string, I'm sure that many of the old school NBA players would tell you that they got caught up in plenty of situations just like that and they played the game.
We are so sorry that the Aces were not able to take the court tonight against the Washington Mystics. Given the travel issues we faced over the past 2 days and after consulting the Player Association leadership and medical professionals.
Now for sympathy, they're trying to act as if they made it a medical issue. Allegedly, they consulted medical professionals. So you seriously consulted medical professionals in that intermittent time between your 3 p.m. landing in Washington, D.C. and the 8 p.m. start of the game. How about this? How about you take the floor and you take your ass whipping like women? Just play the game, lose by 30, and say we could not give our best effort tonight because we had a series of flight delays. But for you to forfeit the game for a league that supposedly you're trying to prove is valid and deserves as much credibility as the men, nah, you can't do that.
We concluded that playing tonight's game would put us at too great a risk for injury.
We concluded that playing tonight's game would put us at too great a risk for injury. So how about this? How about you just half-ass it? That's all. Once again, just take the floor, get blown out, and you already have a built-in excuse. But to forfeit the game, especially when you landed at 3 p.m., nah. I would have believed it if you landed at 6:30 p.m. But 3 p.m., you had time to get to the hotel, get your shit situated, and go straight to the game. Especially since I'm pretty sure that you caught some shut-eye in your holdover stops at the airport while you were on the plane, etc. You're not going to tell me that you did not sleep for 25 hours. I mean, give me a break.
For injury. Now, Mystics head coach Mike Tebow sounded off on the Aces, saying, quote, "I empathize, but I don't sympathize. There wasn't a snowstorm. They got here."
Exactly.
So your obligation is to play.
Absolutely. You're getting paid to play. You're getting paid to play. Growing up, and I'm sure many other cats out there can relate to this, especially in the spring or the summertime, you'd be out there on the basketball court. You might play 3 or 4 games in a row. You might be out there on the court for 8, 9, 10 hours. You're telling me that you could not have put your best foot forward for 2 hours and just gotten your doors blown off by 30 points and you already had a built-in excuse for a league that nobody gives a shit about anyway? Give me a break.
So, Oma, I asked you, given what the Aces went through, do you think it was fair for the WNBA to issue a forfeit?
Well, tell me, what exactly should the WNBA have issued that team? Should the WNBA commissioner have said, you know what, they really should have played, but since they're women, we're going to feel sorry for them and give them a tie?
I don't really agree with it. I was in D.C. at that time visiting my parents. I'm from the area, and there was a lot of storms going on in the Maryland area, and it was pouring rain. So I understand why they were delayed. And I was just 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas airport, delayed for 8 hours. And it wasn't like you can leave and go away and then come back, because they're telling you every hour there's going to be an update and your flight could leave. And I don't have to play a game the next day or that day like they did. So
yeah, well, they're being paid to play.
I think the Aces took a stand here. WNBA.
Yeah, they took a big stand. We don't feel like doing something that could be pivotal in taking our league to the next step. And that's exactly why the WNBA is going nowhere and going nowhere fast. If by some chance you ever catch any of their games, for the most part, the stands are only about a third of the way full. And that's with lesbians and little kids that were dragged there by their parents.
NBA teams need to start flying on charter flights. They need to be treated like NBA teams. And listen.
Now listen to what this idiot just said. So many people come into my comments and they ask me, why do you refer to the mainstream sports media as the liberal sports media? Because in order for you to get on television, especially on ESPN, you have to say absolute nonsense like this. Like the women should have chartered flights. Do you know how much it is to maintain a chartered private plane? Do you know how much their league would have to be making in order for them to afford to have chartered private planes? For the most part, the owners of these NBA teams, who oftentimes also maintain these WNBA teams, certain requests are made of said owners to please not divulge exactly what is going on with the WNBA in regards to how low level the interest actually is in the league and what the main constituency actually is of the WNBA and who they're marketing to, that being lesbians. For this person to actually have the nerve to state that these females deserve to have chartered airplanes, he has no idea what's going on with the league. Or maybe he's just on TV talking shit because he knows that if he speaks the truth, he's going to get fired.
Adam Silver often talks about, when it comes to NBA teams, about rest, how important that is for player health.
Yes, Adam Silver oftentimes does speak about the importance of rest and health for the NBA players. You know why that is, sir? Because the NBA is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. So those athletes, they're like the finest racehorses in the world. When you have a fine racehorse, you make sure that it gets the best. Now, when you have a nagging mare, you have it out in the field and you don't really care what it's doing.
And safety, it's got to be transferred to WNBA players. They should be the same thing.
One thing that Adam Silver has said in response in equal treatment is, yes, the WNBA is subsidiary, but they don't make as much money as the NBA. So
it's a shame that the female on the panel actually has to correct this dude. But I'm pretty sure that that's part of the media paradigm. You have the female there act as if she's the objective observer, and you have the two simps on the panel get emotional. That's part of the gender bender paradigm, where the female is supposed to exude logic and the males exude emotion.
say that it should be treated equally. It's a business. What are your reactions?
Ding. Why is it that the female on the panel could understand that, but at the very least, this first male who's speaking could not grasp that? Either he's flooded over with over-emotionality and feminine energy, or he's just an idiot.
Your reaction? What's your reaction?
Look,
That's just me playing, devil's advocate.
No, that's not you playing devil's advocate. That's you speaking according to rationale, logic, and sense.
I'm highly disappointed by the comments made by the Washington Mystics head coach. Look.
What a shock. Another liberal black male.
He definitely should understand. 25-hour delay. They got into town around 3 o'clock.
And I'm sure that person would tell you, he'll say, look, son, I've been in professional basketball from before you were born. I could tell you stories about Jerry West and Oscar Robertson and Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell being stuck at airports for 35 hours. And they still made the game. They arrived at the arena an hour before tip-off and played the game. So if they can do it, these females can do it. Bet money that coach will correct this dude with information like that.
The game was 7, but it was moved to 8. So those are still extreme conditions to play in. An NBA team, if they're playing...
Desperate times demand desperate measures. If you're going to try to equate the WNBA to the NBA, that's what's known as a false equivalency. Now, if the WNBA was bringing in the same revenue as the NBA and they were not getting the same treatment, then you could use that as a counterbalance. But you cannot in this situation because the WNBA is losing money.
If they're playing even a back-to-back, they will leave the night before, get in town late that night, have all day to sleep and rest. You cannot expect a team to come in on a commercial flight, 25 hours worth of delay to get there.
Sir, once again, the reason why it's a big deal is when you have a team like the Las Vegas Aces and they forfeit that game, that means that the league has to pay back the 5 or 10 people that actually showed up to watch the game. And they're already losing money. They don't want to have to pay back the fans who came to watch the game. They have to pay the people who work at the stadium for doing nothing. You have to pay to maintain the stadium or the arena for that night. And you're not going to get any money back for the event. And that's simply not cost effective when you're already in a situation where the league is not popular at all. They're not making money. It's all about how much money you're generating.
And be rest up the play. That is unnecessary. It's uncalled for. I don't know what the answer is, the solution is, because it's not apples with NBA.
No, sir. The reason why you don't know what the solution is because you're not a solutions-oriented thinker. You're a two-dimensional thinker. You're overly emotional. It's possible that you're playing a role for television, but even more highly probable is that you're another effeminized liberal black male, and you can't think your way out of a paper bag.
Yeah, and how much money they make, but you can't play in those conditions. And I do believe they were making a stand.
Yeah.
But even if they weren't, if they said we're tired, I would understand. Like, we got to move this game along.
Hey, Chris.
That's the new buzz term. I'm making a stand. Whenever you don't feel like doing something and you just weasel your way out of it, it's because you're making a stand. That's what all these super liberal idiots on television try to equate to people who are not willing to back up what they're supposed to be doing. When you make a commitment to show up at a certain event or provide a service, you're supposed to do so. You can't say, well, I'm just tired. If you call your job and you say, I'm tired, then you have to take a sick day because that's already been given for you. They don't give entire teams in the WNBA a sick day. It doesn't work like that. To whom much is given, much is required. They're being paid to play a game. So they have to show up. And if you don't show up, then you have to pay the consequences for it. This is going to hurt the WNBA down the line. There's a reason why they're actually reporting this story on a show like this. They almost never talk about the WNBA on these mainstream ESPN shows.
Hey, Chris, a costly stand because they're in a playoff race, and the other day they lost the game on the same day that this forfeit was announced. They basically lost 2 games in one day to fall behind in the playoff race.
Again, just for sake of argument here, because the controversy is that there's just 2 sides of this argument, whether it's fair or not. And
it's not about fair, it's about business. It's simply not cost effective for them to already be losing money as a league and then have to forfeit a game. Because you're going to have to refund all the fans who showed up to the game. You're still going to have to pay the referees. You're going to have to pay the people in concessions, the people who work at the arena. You have to pay to maintain the venue. And then these female WNBA players are complaining when they get neglected. No guts, no glory. I'm sure they could have gotten to the hotel by 4 o'clock, could have slept until 6:30, arrived at the arena sometime around 7 o'clock, and prep for the game and just get your doors blown off. It's okay.
To your point with what Mike Tebow said, is that, they announced this when actually fans were already in the arena. It was breast cancer awareness for the Mystics, so they missed out on an opportunity for a charity event.
Look, these bros are already sleeping.
And the Mystics had to give refunds and then also offer tickets to another game. So those are the arguments there. I get what you're saying.
Yes.
But to your point, are they taking a stand? Look, the Players Union has an opportunity to opt out of the current CBA early. Deadline is October 31st. When, Carolyn Swords...
Yeah, go ahead and get caught up in all this woke bullshit going on all across the internet. Get caught up in that Kaepernick shit and think that you're going to decertify the collective bargaining agreement. I bet you those owners won't even show up to meet with the WNBA players delegation. They have no respect for them because they're not making money. In negotiations, you have to be generating money. The reason why a collective bargaining session would be big news for the NBA or the NFL is because the owners understand that the players are generating billions of dollars. And they're trying to transmit that energy of discord and revolution to female sports, and it's just not going to work because nobody gives a shit. That is why those broads should have shown up for that game and played. If they were as serious about trying to take the WNBA to the next level as they always claim they are, they should have played the game. They keep making the same excuses. Oh, the WNBA has only been around for 20 years. What was the NBA after 20 years? You're getting the same exposure as the NBA is getting right now. So you cannot compare the growth of the NBA back in 1965 with the growth of the WNBA. Two totally different arcs.
The Aces representative for the Women's National Basketball Players Association on the team, on the Aces, was asked, was this about taking a stand or was this about players' health? She said it was about players' health, but you can't...
She better say that, because if she states that it's about quote-unquote taking a stand, you're not going to win that battle, not even a little bit. Because in order for you to take a stand, you actually have to have people who sympathize with you. And for the most part, even heterosexual women do not sympathize with WNBA players and their so-called plight. Nobody wants to see these broads dribble a damn basketball. Nobody. Other than lesbians and a lot of these dudes out here who are super liberal and trying to raise their little girls up to be basketball players because they couldn't have a son.
You can't underestimate, were they trying to draw a line in the sand here?
The day before, as this was all happening, a lot of the players were tweeting live, like, what was going on, being delayed, and they were just like, man, we're less than 24 hours before playing, and we're expected to play, and we haven't even gotten on a plane yet, and we're just sitting here waiting and waiting.
Why are you sitting there for? Take a nap.
And so they almost were kind of like ready. They kind of knew where this was going. And then by the time they got there, I think they were so fed up, like anybody who would just be traveling under those conditions, that they were just like, we're not going to do this.
Anybody traveling under those conditions, like they were on a trek cross country in a covered wagon. Get the hell out of here.
Expect too much of us to have to play after been sleeping on the floor at the airport, getting to Dallas and then getting delayed.
I'm with them on this. You have to protect your health. Your health is most important. Did they make a stand in the process? Probably so, but health is first.
Yeah, and I'm sure your mama and your grandmama and your baby's mama are all proud of what you're saying. Good job, liberal black man.
Even if they're saying that the reason is for health, they undoubtedly made a stand, and this discussion is not done by any means.
But anyway, that's basically it on this discussion because it is done for me, at least for now, until something else emerges. But as I've stated, this is going to be a major story for the WNBA because oftentimes, especially with many of these liberal agenda-driven contrivances, which is basically all the WNBA is, after a while, it just becomes very obvious to everyone involved, even many of the pundits and media figures on television, that it's quite frankly more trouble than what it's worth. I caught one of the highlights of their games on NBA TV the other night. I'm looking at this creature, Brittany Griner. I'm like, what the hell is going on here, man? Is that a tranny? But anyway, peace.